The deadliest mistake. When learning to speak English. Let me ask you one honest question. How long have you been learning English? 5 years? 10 years? Or maybe you've been studying it since school, and you're still learning it today. You've watched countless English videos, you've learned grammar rules, you've memorized vocabulary, you can understand native speakers when they talk, you can watch movies or YouTube videos in English without subtitles, but the moment you need to speak, everything disappears. Your mouth freezes, your tongue feels heavy, your heart starts beating faster, and your mind goes completely blank. And in that moment, you ask yourself why you still can't speak English after all these years, why everyone else seems to improve except you, and whether something is wrong with your brain. Listen to me carefully. There is nothing wrong with you. You are not stupid, you are not untalented, you are not too old, and you are not lazy, but you are making the deadliest mistake when learning to speak English, a mistake that almost everyone makes. You are training your brain every day, but you are not training your mouth, not your grammar, not your vocabulary, not your memory, but your mouth. No one ever told you this at school. Teachers taught you how to pass exams, how to choose the correct answer, how to write sentences correctly, but no one taught you how to move your mouth like an English speaker. The truth is, English is not just a language in your head. It lives in your lips, your tongue, your jaw, your breath, and your rhythm. You can understand English perfectly and still be unable to speak, because speaking is not just knowledge, it is a physical skill. Imagine reading 100 books about swimming, watching 1,000 videos about swimming, understanding every technique, but never getting into the water. The first time you jump into the pool, you don't swim, you sink. That is exactly what happens when you try to speak English. Your brain knows the words, but your mouth is weak, slow, and unfamiliar with English sounds. So when you open your mouth, panic appears, confidence collapses, and your thoughts disappear. Not because you don't know what to say, but because your mouth has never been trained to say it. That is why you always say, "I understand, but I can't speak." And that sentence is not a failure. It is a sign that you learned English the wrong way. If you are watching this video right now, this might be the moment everything starts to change, because you are about to hear a truth that most English learners never hear, a truth that can finally free you from years of silence. You don't need a perfect accent, you don't need expensive courses, and you don't need special talent. You only need to stop learning English only in your head and start training your mouth. Stay with me until the end of this video, because you are about to understand why you've been stuck for so long and how you can finally speak English with confidence. The reason this mistake is so dangerous is because it keeps you trapped in the same cycle for years without you even realizing it. You keep watching more videos, buying more books, downloading more apps, and telling yourself that one day, after just a little more study, you will finally be ready to speak. But that day never comes. Every time you try to talk, your mouth feels slow and uncomfortable, your words come out broken, and your confidence disappears. This happens because your mouth is still operating in your native language mode. Your lips, tongue, and jaw have been trained for your first language since childhood. But English uses different sounds, different rhythm, and different stress patterns. When you suddenly ask your mouth to speak English without training it, it reacts with resistance, tension, and fear. That tension sends a signal to your brain, and your brain interprets it as danger. Your heart beats faster, your breathing becomes shallow, and your mind goes blank. This is not a lack of intelligence. It is a natural physical response to an untrained skill. Speaking English is like playing a musical instrument. You can understand music theory perfectly, but if your fingers have never practiced the movements, you cannot play smoothly. In the same way, your brain may understand English, but your mouth does not yet know how to produce it with speed and flow. That is why you sound slow, robotic, or unnatural even when you know exactly what you want to say. Another painful truth is that most learners practice English silently. They listen, read, and think in English, but they rarely speak out loud. Silent learning feels safe because no one can hear your mistakes, but it also keeps you weak. Fluency is built through movement, not silence. Every fluent speaker you admire has moved their mouth thousands of times when no one was watching, repeating simple sentences again and again until their mouth stopped fighting them. They didn't become fluent by being perfect. They became fluent by being consistent. And here is the good news that most people never hear. You do not need hours of practice every day. You do not need complicated techniques or advanced vocabulary. What you need is short, focused, daily mouth training. Just a few minutes of speaking out loud every day can slowly reprogram your mouth, calm your nervous system, and rebuild your confidence. When your mouth becomes familiar with English sounds, your brain stops panicking. When your brain feels safe, your words start flowing. This is the moment when people say, "I don't know what happened," but suddenly speaking feels easier. Nothing magical happened. Your mouth simply learned what to do. This is also why accent is not the real problem. Many people blame their accent and believe they must sound like a native speaker to speak confidently. But fluency is not about sounding perfect. It is about sounding smooth, comfortable, and natural in your own voice. When your mouth is trained, even with a foreign accent, people will still say that your English sounds good because it flows. And flow is what listeners care about most. Once you understand this, everything changes. You stop chasing more information and start building a real speaking habit. You stop waiting to feel ready and start speaking even when it feels uncomfortable. You stop judging every mistake and focus on movement and repetition. This shift is small, but its impact is life-changing, because when your mouth becomes fluent, your English follows, and for the first time, you stop feeling stuck and start feeling free when you speak. Now, let me show you exactly how to train your mouth in just 5 minutes a day, in a way that actually works. This is not theory, this is not motivation, and this is not something you listen to and forget. This is a simple physical routine that retrains your mouth, calms your brain, and builds real speaking confidence step by step. 5 minutes sounds small, but when you practice the right way, those 5 minutes become powerful because they create muscle memory, not information. The goal of this routine is not to sound perfect, not to speak fast immediately, and not to impress anyone. The goal is to teach your mouth that English is safe, familiar, and normal. When your mouth feels safe, your brain stops panicking, and when your brain is calm, fluency begins to appear naturally. We start with 1 minute of mouth warm-up, and yes, this matters more than you think. Your mouth has been speaking your native language all day, and now you need to switch it into English mode. Begin with lip rolls by gently buzzing your lips like a motor sound for 5 seconds. Then relax, and repeat this 3 times. This wakes up your lips and removes tension that blocks smooth sounds. Next, stretch your tongue by slowly pushing it out and pulling it back in 10 times, without rushing. Your tongue is one of the most important muscles in speaking, and most learners never train it consciously. Then loosen your jaw by opening your mouth wide and closing it slowly 5 times, allowing the jaw to relax instead of locking. Finish the warm-up by stretching your smile wide as if you are laughing. Hold it for 5 seconds, then relax, and repeat twice. After 1 minute, your mouth should feel warmer, looser, and more awake. That is a ready mouth. Now we move to the second step, mirror speaking, for 1 minute. This step is not about pronunciation. It is about confidence and awareness. Stand in front of a mirror, look into your own eyes, and choose one very simple sentence, such as, "I am learning to speak English confidently," or, "This is my voice, and I am not afraid to use it." Say the sentence slowly and clearly, while watching how your lips, jaw, and tongue move. Do not rush, do not whisper, and do not judge yourself. Say the same sentence 5 times, and each time, increase the speed just a little. The mirror is powerful because it removes fear. When you can speak confidently to yourself, speaking to others becomes much easier. Many learners avoid mirrors because they feel awkward, but that awkward feeling is exactly what you need to pass through. After a few days, that discomfort disappears and is replaced by control and presence. The third step is the most important part of the entire routine, shadow speaking, and this takes 2 minutes. Shadow speaking means you listen to a short sentence from a native speaker and repeat it immediately, without pausing, without translating, and without changing it. Choose a short audio clip, 5 to 10 seconds long, from a YouTube video, a podcast, a movie scene, or even your own recording. Listen carefully, then repeat the sentence out loud at the same speed, with the same rhythm, tone, and emotion. Do not slow it down and do not make it easier. Your job is not to understand every word. Your job is to copy the sound. This trains your ears, your mouth, and your brain together as one system. Even if you make mistakes, keep going. Mistakes are not the enemy. Silence is. Repeat the same sentence several times until your mouth starts to move more smoothly. This is how children learn to speak. They do not analyze grammar. They copy sound and rhythm until it becomes natural. Shadow speaking builds real-time reaction, which is the foundation of fluency. After 2 minutes of shadow speaking, we move to the final step, the fluency loop, for 1 minute. Choose one short sentence, such as, "I'm going to improve my English," or "I can speak more confidently every day." First, say the sentence very slowly, focusing on clear sounds and full mouth movement. Then say it again at a normal conversational speed, smooth and connected. Finally, say it faster, linking the words naturally without stopping. Repeat this slow, normal fast loop 3 times. This trains your mouth to handle different speeds without panic. Many learners can speak slowly, but fall apart when they try to speak faster. This step teaches your brain that speed is not dangerous. Over time, your normal speed becomes faster, and your fast speed becomes comfortable. When these 4 steps are combined, warm-up, mirror speaking, shadow speaking, and fluency loop, you create a complete 5-minute English gym for your mouth. You do not need a partner, you do not need a teacher, and you do not need perfect conditions. You can do this in your room, in your car, or anywhere you can speak out loud. The key is consistency. 5 minutes every day is better than 1 hour once a week. When you practice daily, your mouth slowly stops resisting English, your breathing becomes calmer, and your confidence grows naturally. After 1 week, you will feel less fear. After 2 weeks, your mouth will move faster. After 1 month, people will notice that your English sounds smoother, even if your vocabulary has not changed much. That is the power of mouth training. Remember this clearly. Reading builds knowledge. Listening builds understanding. But speaking builds fluency. If you want to stop being someone who understands English and start being someone who speaks English, you must train your mouth every day, even when you feel tired, even when you feel shy, and even when you think it is not working. Fluency is built quietly, in small daily repetitions that no one sees, until one day you open your mouth and realize that English no longer feels heavy, scary, or impossible. It feels normal. And that is when you know that the deadliest mistake is behind you, and your real speaking journey has finally begun. Now that your mouth is awake and starting to move more freely, we need to fix the next big problem that stops most learners from sounding fluent even after years of practice. And that problem is how you connect sounds. This is where sound clusters and natural flow change everything. Most English learners speak English like they are reading subtitles in their head, one word at a time, slowly, carefully, with small pauses between every word. They believe that speaking clearly means separating every word, but in real spoken English, that is exactly what makes you sound robotic, nervous, and unnatural. Native speakers do not speak in single words. They speak in sound groups, in clusters of words that flow together like music. Fluency is not about how many words you know, it is about how smoothly those words connect. When listeners hear smooth flow, they feel comfort and confidence, even if your grammar is not perfect. When they hear broken speech, they feel tension, even if every word is correct. This is why many learners with strong grammar still sound weak, while some people with simple English sound fluent and confident. Sound clusters are groups of 3 to 6 words that are spoken together without stopping, without breaking the rhythm, and without thinking about each word individually. For example, when learners say, "What are you doing?" they often pronounce every word carefully. What are you doing? But native speakers naturally turn that sentence into one smooth sound. What you doing? The grammar does not change, but the sound does. Another example is, "Did you eat?" which learners often say as 3 separate words, but native speakers say it as one connected sound. Did ya eat? This is not slang, this is not laziness, and this is not bad English. This is how spoken English actually works. Spoken English is compressed, linked, and rhythmic, and until your mouth learns this rhythm, fluency will always feel far away. The reason sound clusters feel difficult at first is because your mouth has been trained for years to stop between words. In your native language, pauses may work differently, so when you try to speak English with the same habit, your speech breaks apart. Your brain then has to restart every sentence, which creates hesitation and fear. When you speak in clusters, your brain relaxes because it no longer needs to make decisions word by word. Instead, it releases one sound unit, then the next, like breathing. This is where flow comes from. Flow is not speed. Many people think fluent speakers talk fast, but that is not true. Fluent speakers talk smoothly. Speed comes naturally after smoothness. When you force speed without flow, you panic. When you build flow first, speed grows by itself. To start training sound clusters, you must change the way you think about speaking. Stop thinking, "What word comes next?" and start thinking, "What sound group am I saying?" Take a simple sentence like, "I am going to go now." A learner might say it slowly and carefully, but a fluent speaker says it as one flowing unit. I'm gonna go now. Notice how words connect, sounds disappear, and rhythm becomes natural. This does not mean you are speaking incorrectly. It means you are speaking naturally. Your goal is not to protect every word. Your goal is to protect the flow. One powerful daily exercise is to choose 3 sound clusters each day that are commonly used in real life. Examples include going to go now, want to see it, let me know, give me a minute, I don't know yet. Write them down, then say each cluster out loud 10 times without stopping, like a short song or chant. Do not say them like reading. Say them like music. Let the sounds rise and fall naturally. Rhythm creates memory faster than logic. When you speak clusters rhythmically, your mouth starts to remember them automatically. After that, place each cluster into a full sentence. For example, if your cluster is going to go now, your sentence could be, I'm going to go now, see you later. Say the whole sentence in one breath, smoothly, without stopping in the middle. Repeat it several times until your mouth feels comfortable. This is how clusters become part of your natural speech instead of something you think about. Another essential habit is recording yourself. Many learners avoid recording because they hate hearing their own voice, but that discomfort is a sign of growth. When you record your voice and listen back, do not judge your accent or grammar. Listen only for flow. Ask yourself, does this sound smooth or broken? Does it feel connected or chopped? Over time, you will hear clear improvement, and that improvement builds confidence faster than any compliment from others. To deepen your sense of rhythm, you can also practice speaking clusters with soft background music. Choose calm music with a steady beat and speak your clusters on the beat, letting your words ride the rhythm. This helps your breath, timing, and flow align naturally. English is not a language of silence. It is a language of moving sound. When your voice moves with rhythm, your fear fades. One important truth you must accept is that you do not need a native accent to sound fluent. Many learners chase British or American accents and feel ashamed of their own voice. But fluency is not about accent imitation. It is about comfort and control. When you speak in clusters with smooth flow, people focus on your message, not your accent. They feel that you are confident, and confidence is what makes speech attractive and powerful. Broken speech, not accent, is what makes listeners uncomfortable. That is why you should stop trying to sound like someone else and start trying to sound smooth as yourself. As you practice sound clusters daily, something important happens inside your brain. Your thinking speed increases without effort. You stop translating. You stop planning every sentence. Your mouth begins to lead, and your brain follows. This is how spontaneous speaking is born. It does not come from memorizing more vocabulary. It comes from training sound flow until English feels like one continuous movement instead of many separate decisions. Sound clusters are the bridge between knowing English and speaking English. When you master them, you stop sounding like a student and start sounding like a speaker. And once flow enters your speech, confidence follows naturally, because your voice no longer feels fragile. It feels alive, connected, and free. This is not a small detail. This is one of the biggest differences between learners who stay silent for years and learners who finally break through and speak. When you combine daily mouth training with sound cluster practice, English stops being something you study and becomes something you do. And that is where real fluency begins. Now we need to talk about the part that most English courses completely ignore, but the part that actually controls whether you speak or stay silent. And that is the connection between your brain, your mouth, and your emotions. You can train your mouth every day. You can practice sound clusters. You can repeat sentences. But if your brain is still full of fear, judgment, and self-doubt, your voice will never feel free. Many learners believe their problem is pronunciation or grammar, but the real problem is emotional resistance. Every time you try to speak English, your brain scans for danger. It asks questions like, what if I sound stupid? What if I make a mistake? What if they laugh at me? What if I freeze? These thoughts happen in milliseconds, before you even open your mouth. And once they appear, your body reacts. Your shoulders tense, your breathing becomes shallow, your jaw tightens, and your voice weakens. This is not an English problem. This is a fear response. Your brain is trying to protect you from embarrassment, rejection, and judgment. The problem is that this protection keeps you silent. Your mouth cannot speak freely when your brain believes speaking is dangerous. This is why mindset is not motivation. Mindset is the operating system behind your voice. If the system is full of fear, your mouth will always hesitate, no matter how much knowledge you have. To remove this fear, you must change the relationship between your brain and your mouth. Instead of letting your brain control your mouth, you need to teach your brain to trust your mouth. The first step is understanding this truth. Mistakes are not danger. Your brain treats mistakes like threats because of past experiences. Maybe you were corrected harshly at school. Maybe someone laughed when you mispronounced a word. Maybe you compared yourself to fluent speakers and felt small. These memories trained your brain to associate English with pain. So every time you speak, your brain presses the brake. To release this brake, you must create new emotional experiences with English. Safe experiences. Positive experiences. This is why speaking alone, in private, is so powerful at the beginning. When you speak in your room, in front of a mirror, or while recording your voice, there is no real danger. Nothing bad happens when you make mistakes. Slowly, your brain starts learning a new lesson. Speaking English is safe. As this belief grows, tension fades. The second step is to stop speaking like a student and start speaking like a human. Students focus on correctness. Humans focus on connection. When you speak English only thinking about grammar, your voice becomes flat and weak. But when you speak with emotion, your brain shifts from fear to expression. Emotion gives your brain a purpose. Instead of asking, "Am I correct?" your brain asks, "What am I feeling?" This simple shift removes pressure. Try saying a simple sentence like, "I'm happy to be here." If you say it like a textbook, your brain stays tense. But if you smile, breathe, and feel the meaning, your voice becomes stronger immediately. This is because emotion activates a different part of the brain, one that is less judgmental and more expressive. That is why actors become fluent quickly when learning languages. They are not afraid of sounding wrong. They focus on feeling real. You must train the same habit. Choose simple sentences and say them with different emotions. Say them happily, angrily, nervously, excitedly. Let your voice change. Let your body move. When you act, fear disappears because your brain is busy expressing, not judging. The third step is breaking the translation habit. Translation is one of the biggest sources of anxiety. When you think in your native language and then translate into English, your brain works too hard and panics. To remove this pressure, you must train your brain to connect English directly to meaning, not to words in your first language. For example, when you hear, "Let's catch up sometime," your brain should feel friendly connection, not search for translation. When you hear, "I'm starving," your brain should feel hunger, not grammar. This is how children learn. They connect sound to experience. You can train this by writing the feeling or situation next to each sentence you practice. Not the translation, the meaning. Over time, your brain stops translating and starts reacting. Reaction is fluency. The fourth step is combining voice with movement. Fear lives in stillness. When your body is frozen, your mind freezes. That is why standing up, using your hands, and changing posture while speaking is so powerful. Movement tells your brain that you are active, not threatened. When you speak while walking, gesturing, or acting, your voice becomes louder and more confident naturally. You are no longer hiding. You are expressing. This physical confidence feeds mental confidence. The fifth step is creating a daily brain and mouth ritual. Not a study session. A ritual. 5 minutes where you speak with full presence, full emotion, and zero judgment. 1 minute saying sentences with emotion. 1 minute acting them out. 1 minute speaking while moving. 1 minute mirror speaking with strong eye contact. 1 minute recording and listening back, not for mistakes, but for energy. This ritual rewires your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who learns English and start seeing yourself as someone who speaks English. Identity is powerful. When you believe I am a speaker, your actions follow. When you believe I am bad at English, your voice hides. The final and most important truth is this: confidence does not come after fluency. Fluency comes after confidence. Waiting to feel confident before speaking is a trap. Confidence is built by speaking while you are still afraid and realizing that nothing terrible happens. Every time you speak despite fear, fear loses power. Your brain updates its belief. Your mouth becomes braver. Your voice becomes stronger. This is how silence ends. Not through perfect grammar, not through endless study, but through daily courageous expression. When your brain trusts your mouth, and your mouth feels free to move, English stops being a subject and becomes a voice. Your voice. And once that voice is born, it never truly disappears again. Now it is time to talk about repetition, because repetition is the bridge between silence and fluency, but only if you do it the right way. Most English learners repeat sentences every day and still make no real progress, not because repetition does not work, but because they repeat in a way that trains weakness instead of strength. When people hear the word repetition, they imagine saying the same sentence again and again like a robot, flat, emotionless, and mechanical. This kind of repetition makes your mouth tired, your brain bored, and your confidence smaller. Real repetition is not about saying something many times. Real repetition is about building layers of control, speed, emotion, and real-life usage. That is why fluent speakers, actors, leaders, and interpreters all use smart repetition systems instead of mindless repetition. The smart repetition system has 5 stages, and each stage adds a new layer to your speaking ability. The first stage is slow clarity repetition. At this stage, your only goal is physical accuracy, not speed and not fluency. Choose one short, meaningful sentence, something simple like, "I don't know what to say," or "I'm getting better every day." Say the sentence very slowly, stretching the sounds, feeling how your lips, tongue, and jaw move. Pay attention to how wide your mouth opens, how your tongue touches your teeth, and how your breath flows. Do not rush, and do not try to sound natural yet. This stage is like lifting a light weight slowly in the gym to train correct form. When you repeat slowly with full awareness, you teach your mouth the exact physical movements needed for the sentence. Do this 3 times. The second stage is flow repetition. Now you take the same sentence and speak it as one smooth, connected line at a natural conversational speed. Do not pause between words. Focus on linking sounds and letting the sentence flow out in one breath. This stage trains your real speaking rhythm, the rhythm you need in conversation. Say the sentence 5 times, each time smoother than before. This is where sound clusters naturally appear, because your mouth starts choosing efficiency over control. The third stage is emotion repetition, and this is where most learners have never practiced. Take the same sentence and say it with different emotions. Say it softly and sadly, then say it confidently and happily, then say it with frustration or surprise. Let your voice rise and fall. Let your face and body respond. Emotion repetition trains your brain, not just your mouth. It teaches your nervous system that English is not a test. It is a form of expression. When you can say the same sentence with different emotions, you own it. You are no longer afraid of it. This stage also prepares you for real conversations, because real life is emotional, not neutral. The fourth stage is pressure repetition. This is where you increase speed while staying in control. Say the sentence faster than normal, but do not allow it to break apart. Push your limits slightly, then pull back. This trains reaction speed and teaches your brain that fast speaking is not dangerous. Many learners freeze in real conversations because they have never trained under pressure. Pressure repetition creates safety in speed. Say the sentence 5 times fast, but relaxed. If it breaks, slow down and rebuild flow. The fifth and final stage is real-world use repetition. This stage transforms the sentence from practice into part of your identity. Take the same sentence and place it into 3 different real-life situations. For example, if your sentence is, "I don't know what to say," imagine a job interview, a romantic moment, and an awkward situation with friends. Say the sentence naturally in each context, adjusting tone and emotion. This trains your brain to retrieve English in real situations instead of practice mode. When a sentence has lived in different emotional and situational contexts, it becomes automatic. At this point, the sentence belongs to you. It is no longer something you repeat. It is something you can use. Now, here is how to practice this system daily without feeling overwhelmed. You do not need many sentences. 1 sentence per day is enough. Spend 1 minute on slow clarity repetition, 1 minute on flow repetition, 1 minute on emotion repetition, 1 minute on pressure repetition, and 1 minute on real-world use repetition. 5 minutes total. That is it. The power comes from depth, not quantity. Many learners try to repeat 10 sentences once. Fluent speakers repeat 1 sentence deeply. Over time, these deeply trained sentences become building blocks for spontaneous speech. You start combining them, adapting them, and creating new sentences without effort. This is how fluency grows quietly in the background. There are a few mistakes you must avoid. Do not repeat without emotion. That builds robotic speech. Do not repeat too fast, too early. That builds tension, not fluency. Do not skip real-world context. That keeps English trapped in practice mode. And never skip recording yourself. Recording is feedback. When you listen back, do not judge mistakes. Listen for progress. Listen for strength. Listen for flow. Repetition works because it removes uncertainty. Every time you repeat a sentence smartly, your brain says, "I know this. I can handle this." Confidence grows from familiarity, not from perfection. Every fluent speaker you admire has repeated the same sentences hundreds, even thousands of times, in the shower, in the mirror, on the bus, late at night, early in the morning. You did not see that work, but you see the result. Repetition is invisible work, but fluency is visible. And this is the final mindset shift you must accept. You do not repeat to remember. You repeat to become. You repeat until the sentence becomes part of your voice, part of your rhythm, part of your identity. When repetition is done this way, English stops being something you study and becomes something you live. And once that happens, silence no longer has power over you. Now we need to face one of the most uncomfortable truths about learning to speak English, because this truth decides whether you will stay stuck for years or finally move forward. And that truth is the difference between a passive learner and a fluent speaker. On the surface, they may look similar. Both watch English videos. Both listen to podcasts. Both follow English channels on YouTube. Both say they want to speak fluently. But beneath the surface, their habits are completely different, and those habits create completely different results. A passive learner consumes English like entertainment. They watch long videos, take notes, save useful phrases, and feel productive while doing it. At the end of the day, they know more than before, but they sound the same as yesterday. They mistake information for progress. They believe that if they just watch one more video, learn one more rule, or find one more perfect method, fluency will magically appear. But it never does, because fluency does not come from knowing more. Fluency comes from doing more. A passive learner watches English silently. They pause videos to understand meanings. They replay parts to catch every word. They feel safe because no one hears their mistakes. But safety is exactly what keeps them weak. Silence feels comfortable, but comfort does not build skill. Every day they delay speaking. Their fear grows stronger, and their mouth stays untrained. Over time, they begin to believe a dangerous lie. I understand English. I'm just not good at speaking. That sentence becomes their identity. On the other side is the fluent speaker. The fluent speaker does not consume much content. They do not chase perfect explanations or advanced lessons. They choose a small amount of input and squeeze every drop of practice out of it. They watch less, but they speak every single day, even when they are tired, even when they feel awkward, even when they sound bad, especially when they sound bad. The fluent speaker understands something very important that the passive learner does not. Fluency is built through exposure plus action, not exposure alone. When a fluent speaker watches a video, they do not just watch. They pause and repeat. They shadow sentences. They speak out loud. They use the content as raw material for practice, not as something to collect. To them, a 5-minute video is not entertainment. It is a training session. This difference in mindset creates a massive gap over time. 1 hour of silent watching adds information. 5 minutes of active speaking changes behavior. The fluent speaker is not smarter. They are not more talented. They are simply more willing to act. They accept embarrassment as part of the process. They understand that sounding bad is temporary, but staying silent is permanent. While the passive learner waits to feel ready, the fluent speaker starts before feeling ready. And that is the key difference. Readiness does not come before action. Readiness comes from action. Every time the fluent speaker opens their mouth, their brain learns that speaking is survivable. Nothing terrible happens. The fear slowly loses power. The mouth becomes faster. The voice becomes stronger. Meanwhile, the passive learner keeps preparing for a future moment that never arrives. They tell themselves, "I'll speak when I'm more confident," without realizing that confidence is built by speaking, not by waiting. Over time, the passive learner becomes frustrated. They feel like they have invested so much time and energy, yet nothing changes. They start doubting themselves. They blame their age, their accent, their memory, or their environment. But the real problem is not who they are. It is what they do every day. The fluent speaker's daily routine looks simple from the outside. They may only spend 10 minutes a day with English. But those 10 minutes are active. They speak out loud. They repeat sentences. They train their mouth. They use emotion. They record their voice. They do not aim for perfection. They aim for consistency. And consistency always beats intensity. This is why some people speak fluently after a short time while others struggle for years. It is not about how much English you consume. It is about how much English you produce. Language lives in output, not input. Input fills your head. Output rewires your brain. This is why fluency equals action, not information. Information feels good. Action feels uncomfortable. But discomfort is where growth happens. The fluent speaker has made peace with discomfort. They no longer interpret it as failure. They interpret it as training. When they feel awkward, they know they are doing something right. When their mouth struggles, they know progress is happening. The passive learner avoids that discomfort and stays stuck in preparation mode. And here is the most important part. You do not need to change your life to become a fluent speaker. You do not need more time. You do not need better materials. You do not need perfect conditions. You only need to change one thing. Stop measuring progress by how much you understand and start measuring progress by how often you speak. The moment you shift from consuming to producing, everything changes. English stops being something you watch and becomes something you do. You stop being a learner and start becoming a speaker. This shift may feel small, but it is powerful. Because once you choose action over information, fluency is no longer a mystery. It becomes a predictable result of daily speaking. And the question at the end of this section is simple but uncomfortable. Which one are you right now? The passive learner who watches and waits, or the fluent speaker who speaks and grows? The answer to that question is not found in your knowledge. It is found in your daily actions. Now, let me say this one last time, slowly and clearly, because this might be the most important truth you hear in your entire English journey. You are not bad at English. You never were. You are not stupid. You are not slow. You are not untalented. And you are not broken. You simply trained the wrong way for too long. You were taught to consume English, not to use it. You were taught to stay quiet, not to speak. You were taught to avoid mistakes, not to grow through them. And because of that, you have stayed silent, not because you couldn't speak, but because you were never shown how to train speaking correctly. Silence slowly became normal. Avoiding conversation became comfortable. And without realizing it, you accepted a version of yourself that understands English but never uses it. That is not who you really are. That is who your habits created. And habits can change. But first, you need to wake up. You need to wake up to how much time you have already lost by staying silent. Think about it honestly. How many opportunities passed you by because you didn't speak? A job interview where you said less than you wanted. A conversation where you smiled instead of sharing your thoughts. A moment where you had something valuable to say, but chose silence because you were afraid of sounding wrong. These moments add up. Not in one dramatic failure, but in small, quiet regrets. And the danger of silence is not that it hurts once. The danger is that it slowly convinces you that this is just who you are. But it's not. Silence is not your personality. Silence is a habit. And today is the day you break it. This is your wake-up call. Stop waiting until you feel ready. Stop waiting until you feel confident. Stop waiting until your English is good enough. That moment will never arrive on its own. Confidence is not something you receive after preparation. Confidence is something you build through action. Every fluent speaker you admire once sounded bad. Every confident voice you respect once shook with fear. The only difference between them and you is not talent or intelligence. It is that they spoke anyway. They stood up. They looked at themselves. And they spoke, even when their voice felt weak. So now I am asking you to do the same. Stand up. Right now. Or as soon as this video ends. Stand up, because standing changes your energy. It tells your brain that something important is happening. Then, look in the mirror. Not to judge yourself, not to criticize your accent, not to search for mistakes, but to recognize the person you are becoming. Look into your own eyes and understand this clearly. The person in front of you is capable of speaking English, not someday, not in the future. Today, and then speak. Speak today. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today, say one sentence out loud. It does not need to be perfect. It does not need to be impressive. It only needs to be spoken. Because the moment sound leaves your mouth, silence loses power. That first sentence may feel uncomfortable. Your voice may shake. Your pronunciation may not be clean. That does not matter. What matters is that you broke the pattern. You chose action over fear. And that choice changes everything. From that moment on, you are no longer someone who wants to speak English. You are someone who speaks English, even if it's one sentence a day. Especially if it's one sentence a day. This is how identities change. Not through big promises, but through small repeated actions. If you speak today, you teach your brain a new lesson. Speaking is allowed. Speaking is safe. Speaking is possible. And tomorrow, it becomes easier. Not because your English magically improved overnight, but because your fear lost a little bit of its control. Over the next days and weeks, if you keep showing up, if you keep speaking even when it feels awkward, your mouth will become stronger, your voice will become steadier, and your confidence will grow quietly in the background. One day, you will speak without overthinking. One day, words will come out without panic. One day, you will realize that English no longer feels heavy in your mouth. And that day will not feel dramatic. It will feel normal. And that is the real victory. But it all starts here, with this decision. Not to learn more. Not to watch more. Not to prepare more. But to speak. To stop hiding behind understanding and start stepping into expression. You don't need permission from anyone. You don't need approval. You don't need to sound like a native speaker. You only need courage for one moment. The courage to open your mouth today. Because fluency is not built in classrooms, books, or videos alone. It is built in bedrooms, living rooms, late nights, early mornings, in private moments where you choose to speak even when no one is listening. And one day, when people hear you speak confidently, they will not know how many times you stood in front of a mirror, how many times your voice shook, how many times you felt embarrassed and spoke anyway. They will only hear the result. But you will know the truth. You earned it. You trained for it. You refused to stay silent. So remember this clearly. You are not bad at English. You were never bad. You just trained the wrong way. And now you know the right way. Stand up. Look in the mirror. Speak today. Your voice is ready. Your mouth is ready. And your time to stop being silent is now. Now we come to the final truth. The truth that changes everything once you truly accept